The galaxy was quiet, but only on the surface. Humanity had grown far beyond what anyone had predicted. Once humans were weak, fragile, and scattered across a few planets. Now they had colonies spanning hundreds of star systems, massive fleets of warships, and technology that rivaled the greatest civilizations in the cosmos. Yet their growth had not gone unnoticed. Somewhere in the darkness, a species called the Virex Dominion watched with cold, calculating eyes. They did not see humans as explorers, as dreamers, or as fellow life forms. To the Virex, humans were a threat, an annoyance that needed to be wiped out completely. Captain Elena Rivas stood on the bridge of the USS Vanguard. Her uniform neat, her posture rigid, yet her mind was racing. The sensors had picked up movement on the outer edge of the system. At first it looked like routine patrols, but then came the warning messages. The Virex had deployed a fleet, hundreds of ships, each bristling with weapons that could pierce any human shield, not just to fight humans, but to kill them entirely. These were the lethal vessels of which legends whispered in fear across the galaxy. Elena's hand rested on the railing as she looked out at the blinking lights of the fleet around her. Her crew moved quickly, following protocols she had drilled into them countless times, but even they could feel the tension. The fleet wasn't just large, it was frighteningly precise. The Virex didn't make mistakes. They did not hesitate. Lieutenant Marcus Juno, young but sharp, came to her side. His face was pale. "Captain, this is not just a raid. They're coming for the colonies directly. Millions could die before we even reach them." Elena turned to him, her eyes sharp but steady. "Then we fight. That is all we can do. Humanity has faced impossible odds before, and we have always survived." Her voice was calm, but beneath it was a fire, a determination that could light the darkest void. Messages came in from other fleet commanders. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of human ships against nearly 1,000 Virex vessels. Each one was designed to hunt, target, and destroy human life with precision. Yet despite the fear, no one hesitated. Humanity did not bend. Humanity did not falter. They prepared. In the quiet moments before battle, Elena walked through the corridors of the Vanguard. She passed engineers, medics, and pilots, all focused, all ready. A young crew member, no older than 16, approached her nervously. "Captain, do you think we can win?" His voice trembled, the innocence of youth clashing with the horrors he might soon face. Elena knelt down to meet his gaze. "I don't know if we will win," she said honestly, her hand resting on his shoulder. "But I do know this, we will make them pay for every life they try to take. Humanity never gives up. We fight, we survive, and we endure. That is what makes us strong." The young crew member nodded, swallowing hard, determination replacing fear. Around them the ship hummed with energy, systems running at full power, lights flickering across the walls like stars. Humanity's warriors were ready. Their families, their homes, and their very existence depended on them. As the fleet prepared for battle, Elena returned to the bridge. She looked out at the dark expanse of space where distant stars blinked coldly. Somewhere out there, the Virex fleet moved silently, lethal and unstoppable, or so they believed. Humans were small, fragile, and foolish, but they had something no weapon could ever destroy: heart, courage, and the will to survive. And as the first of the Virex ships appeared on the sensors, glowing red and immense, Elena whispered under her breath, more to herself than anyone else, "They think they can end us, but they have no idea what it means to fight a human." The alarms began to blare. The first strike was imminent. Humanity's defenders braced themselves. Fear was there, yes, but so was fire. And in that moment, above the hum of the ship and the cold emptiness of space, one truth was clear. This war would be fought not just with weapons, but with the very soul of humanity. The silence of space shattered in an instant. Bright flashes of red and orange lit the darkness as the Virex fleet descended like a storm. Their lethal vessels moved with terrifying speed, almost as if they could anticipate every human maneuver. On the bridge of the USS Vanguard, alarms screamed, casting a blood-red glow across the faces of the crew. Every console beeped warnings. Every screen showed destruction spreading across the human colonies. Captain Elena Rivas gritted her teeth, her hands gripping the railing. She had trained for moments like this, but no amount of preparation could fully erase the fear in her chest. "All hands, battle stations," she commanded, her voice sharp and steady. "Divert all available power to shields. Target their forward assault ships. Protect the colonies at all costs." Lieutenant Marcus Juno sprinted to his console, launching fighter squads into the chaos. Squadron Alpha, engage the lead vessels. Beta, provide cover. Remember your training. His voice was calm, but the tension behind it was undeniable. Young pilots, some barely old enough to remember Earth, dove into the storm of enemy fire. Ships exploded around them, sending shockwaves that rattled every vessel in the fleet. The first strike from the Virex was merciless. Their weapons cut through human shields like paper. One by one, human ships fell, leaving trails of fire drifting across the void. Explosions shook the Vanguard, making the deck tremble beneath the feet of the crew. Smoke filled the corridors as emergency lights bathed the ship in crimson. Amidst the chaos, Elena stood firm. She barked orders, moving from console to console, rallying her crew. Hold the line. Focus fire on their engines. Make them pay for every human life they try to take. On a nearby colony, families screamed as they ran for cover. Buildings crumbled under the Virex bombardment. The human defenders fought back with everything they had, but the enemy was relentless. It seemed impossible. It seemed hopeless. Yet in the heart of despair, something stronger than fear took hold. Human courage. Marcus led a squadron directly into the heart of the enemy formation. Fighters weaved between beams of deadly energy, striking at weak points no one else could reach. Every hit was precise, every maneuver daring. Some fighters didn't return, swallowed by fire, yet their sacrifices created openings for others to follow. A young crew member, barely 16, sat trembling at a console, tracking incoming vessels. Captain, there's so many of them. How can we survive this? Elena placed a steady hand on his shoulder. We survive because we must. Because human life, human spirit is not something machines can destroy. Fight with your heart and no weapon can touch you. Her words ignited a spark in the young soldier. Fear did not vanish, but determination replaced panic. Across the fleet, similar stories played out. Humans facing impossible odds and refusing to yield. Each sacrifice, each daring maneuver slowed the Virex advance, giving the colonies precious time. The battle raged for hours, yet in the midst of destruction, a small victory emerged. The first lethal Virex vessel exploded under coordinated human fire. Its destruction sent a ripple through the enemy formation, proving that even these engineered killers could be stopped. Elena allowed herself a brief exhale, but the fight was far from over. This is only the beginning, she said, her voice carrying both warning and promise. The Virex may be deadly, but so are we. Humanity will fight, humanity will endure, and humanity will win, no matter the cost. As the Vanguard prepared to counterattack, the stars outside the ship seemed to burn brighter, reflecting the determination in the hearts of every human aboard. The first strike had tested them. It had shown their fear, their pain, and their losses. But it had also shown something far greater: humanity's courage, its resilience, and its unbreakable spirit. In the endless darkness of space, amid the flames of war, one truth became clear. No machine, no matter how lethal, could match the will of humans who refused to surrender. The battle had raged for days. The galaxy, once a place of stars and quiet wonder, now echoed with the screams of engines and the fire of countless weapons. The human fleet, though brave and determined, was battered. Ships that had once gleamed in the light of distant suns now drifted in broken silence, twisted metal floating endlessly in the void. Humanity was fighting for survival, and every victory had a cost. Captain Elena Riva stood on the bridge of the USS Vanguard, watching the aftermath of the last skirmish. The sensors were filled with debris, shattered vessels, drifting escape pods, and faint signals from ships that might never return. Her crew worked tirelessly, patching hulls, rerouting power, and tending to the wounded. Yet despite their determination, the pain was palpable. The losses were heavy. Friends, colleagues, even heroes who had grown up together among the stars were gone. Lieutenant Marcus Juno approached Elena, his expression grim. "Captain, we lost another squadron. Hundreds more lives. Gone." He paused, swallowing hard. "And the colonies, they're burning. They're calling for help, but we can't get to them all." Elena's heart tightened. She wanted to cry, to scream at the injustice of it all, but there was no time for grief. Every decision she made could save or cost more lives. "We do what we must, Marcus," she said quietly. "Every life we save, every strike we make against them, it matters. Humanity is not defined by the losses we take, but by the courage we show in the face of them." She walked through the medbay, where wounded sailors and civilians lay side by side. The smell of antiseptic mixed with smoke, and the cries of the injured filled the air. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, their hands steady even as their hearts ached. One young soldier, barely conscious, reached for Elena's hand. "Captain, will we survive?" Elena knelt beside him, her eyes soft. "We will," she promised, though even she felt the weight of uncertainty. "We survive because we fight. We survive because humans never give up. And even if the darkness is strong, the light inside us is stronger." Amid the suffering, the human engineers worked miracles. They modified weapons on the fly, reinforced shields, and repaired ships faster than anyone thought possible. They discovered small weaknesses in the Virex vessels, flaws in their designs that the Dominion had overlooked. Every strike, every sacrifice made a difference. Marcus studied the sensor data late into the night. "Captain, I think I've found a pattern," he said, eyes wide with excitement. "The Virex ships, they have a weak point. If we can hit the engines in a certain sequence, we can take down even their largest vessels." Elena leaned over his console, her heart beating faster. "Then we plan. We coordinate. And we strike with everything we have. Humanity may bleed, but we do not surrender." In the corridors, the crew whispered stories of lost friends and fallen heroes. Their grief was heavy, but it was also a bond. Every human aboard the Vanguard felt the weight of their duty, not just to survive, but to honor those who had fallen. Each life lost became a reason to fight harder, to strike back with courage and determination. As night fell across the observation deck, Elena stared at the stars. They had witnessed humanity's suffering, yet also its defiance. The cost was enormous: ships destroyed, colonies in flames, and countless human lives taken. But in that vast emptiness, one truth shone brighter than any weapon: humanity would endure. Humanity would fight. Humanity would rise from its losses stronger than before. The fleet prepared for the next engagement, aware that the price would only grow higher. But even in the face of despair, the spark of hope burned bright. Humanity's heart was unbreakable, and that heart would guide them through the darkness. And somewhere, in the silence between the battles, Elena whispered a promise to every lost soul, every brave human who had fallen: "We will not fail. We will survive. We will make them pay." The galaxy had become a battlefield. Human and Virex ships clashed among the stars, leaving trails of fire and smoke in their wake. The humans were exhausted, battered by loss and fear, yet they fought with every ounce of strength they possessed. Captain Elena Rivas stood on the bridge of the USS Vanguard, her hand steady on the railing, her eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding before her. She could feel the weight of her crew's hopes, their fears, and their courage pressing on her shoulders. Lieutenant Marcus Juno ran calculations at the console, his brow furrowed. "Captain, if we use the pattern I discovered in the Virex formations, we can create a gap in their lines. It's risky, but it could turn the tide." Elena nodded, her jaw tight. "Risky is all we have left, Marcus. Prepare the strike teams. Every ship, every fighter, every crew member, they fight as one. Humanity cannot lose now." The Vanguard led the charge. Its engines flared, cutting through the darkness like a beacon of defiance. Behind it, human vessels surged forward, striking with precision and determination. Explosions erupted around them as human cannons found weak points in the Virex fleet. One by one, enemy ships faltered. For the first time, the humans were not only surviving, they were gaining ground. Marcus piloted his fighter into the heart of the enemy formation. The Virex vessels were massive, bristling with weapons meant to annihilate humans, but he had a plan. Dodging streams of deadly energy, he aimed at the core of the lead ship, following the weak points he had discovered. With a daring maneuver, he fired, and the vessel shuddered violently before exploding in a blinding flash. The destruction of the lead ship sent shockwaves through the Virex formation. Their carefully coordinated attack faltered. Smaller ships collided, weapons malfunctioned, and the disciplined enemy line began to crumble. Humanity seized the moment. Human fighters surged forward, exploiting the gaps, striking with everything they had. On the Vanguard, Elena barked orders, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus fire on the damaged ships. Protect our fighters. Keep pushing forward." Every command carried the weight of life and death, yet also the power of hope. Humanity's heart was stronger than any weapon the Virex could wield. Amid the battle, stories of courage emerged. A small squadron, outnumbered and surrounded, fought tirelessly to cover a retreating colony. Engineers on the Vanguard repaired damaged ships in record time, rushing them back into the fight. Civilians safely evacuated aboard support vessels. watched as humans turned the tide, their hope growing with every Virex ship that fell. Elena allowed herself a brief moment to breathe as she observed the change. Humanity was no longer just defending, it was attacking, forcing the Virex back. The tide of battle had shifted, not because of superior numbers or technology, but because of human courage, ingenuity, and relentless determination. Marcus returned to the bridge, exhilaration in his eyes. "Captain, it worked. Their formation is breaking. We can push them back." Elena smiled, a rare, genuine smile amid the destruction. "We fight with everything we have. Every life we save, every vessel we destroy, it proves that no machine, no weapon can break the human spirit. Humanity will endure, Marcus. We will rise from this fire stronger than before." As the Vanguard and its fleet pressed forward, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, reflecting the indomitable will of humans. For the first time in days, there was a sense of hope, a promise that even in the darkest moments, humanity could fight back, could survive, and could prevail. And in the quiet moments between the battles, Elena whispered to herself, a vow carried across the void. "We will not surrender. We will not falter. Humanity will rise, and we will show the galaxy the strength of our hearts." The turning point had come. Humanity, battered but unbroken, had taken the first real step toward victory. And though the war was far from over, the courage and defiance of every human soul aboard the Vanguard and its fleet now burned brighter than the fires of any battlefield. The battle was far from over. Even though the humans had gained the upper hand, the Virex dominion was relentless. Their lethal vessels adapted, regrouped, and pressed harder than ever, trying to crush humanity's spirit. But the humans had discovered something the Virex could never calculate: the strength of the human heart. Captain Elena Rivas stood on the bridge of the USS Vanguard, staring out at the scattered fleet and the stars beyond. Ships burned and drifted, but each explosion also marked a victory, a sign that humanity could endure against impossible odds. The crew moved around her with quiet determination. Every soldier, pilot, and engineer was focused on survival and victory, but also on the lives of the people they were fighting to protect. Lieutenant Marcus Juno approached, eyes filled with awe and worry. "Captain, look at the colonies. They're holding. Civilians are working with us, helping the wounded and keeping morale up, even with all the destruction. They haven't given up." Elena nodded, a mixture of pride and sorrow in her eyes. "That is what makes us human, Marcus. We do not just fight with weapons. We fight with hope, courage, and love for one another. That is a strength no machine can ever understand." Across the fleet, small acts of bravery told the story of humanity's heart. A young engineer risked her life to repair a broken shield generator mid-battle, saving an entire squadron. Pilots flew into impossible situations to protect retreating colonies, knowing they might not return. Even civilians aboard transport ships comforted each other, shared food, and tended to the wounded, refusing to let fear dominate. Elena's voice carried over the comms. "Every life matters. Every act of courage matters. We fight not just for survival, but for the right to live freely, to dream, to protect our families and our homes. Humanity will endure because we carry our hearts into battle. Remember that." The Virex vessels advanced again, sensing weakness in the human fleet, but every attack was met with fierce resistance. Humans used clever tactics, combined firepower, and daring maneuvers to exploit enemy mistakes. Engineers had modified weapons and shields, turning even small ships into deadly threats. But more than technology, it was human determination, ingenuity, and care for each other that turned the tide in unexpected ways. Marcus piloted his fighter through a cluster of Virex vessels, dodging beams and missiles with lightning reflexes. "We can do this, Captain!" he shouted over the comms. "We can push them back." Elena watched the young pilot, pride swelling in her chest. Humanity was not just surviving, they were fighting with their hearts, proving that courage and compassion could be just as powerful as lasers and plasma cannons. In the med bay, Elena took a moment to walk among the wounded. She knelt beside a soldier who had lost a leg. His eyes were closed, but he whispered, "We will fight. We have to fight. For everyone." Elena's hand rested on his shoulder. "And we will," she said softly. "Because humanity never stops, and the heart of humanity is stronger than any weapon." That night, aboard the Vanguard, as the fleet regrouped and prepared for the next attack, A quiet sense of unity spread among the humans. They were not just a fleet, they were a family. Every loss, every victory, every act of bravery had reminded them why they fought. It was not for conquest or glory, but for life itself, and for the hope that even in the darkest moments humans could shine brighter than any star. Elena returned to the bridge and looked out at the horizon of space. The Virex had unleashed their most lethal vessels, yet humanity's heart had endured. She whispered to herself, a vow and a promise. No matter what comes, we will never bow. We fight with our hearts, and as long as we do, humanity will never fall. The galaxy watched in silence as humans, battered but unbroken, carried their courage and hope into the storm. And in the hearts of every soldier, pilot, and civilian, one truth burned brightly. Humanity was unstoppable when it fought not just with weapons but with heart, soul, and unyielding spirit. The central colony was under siege. The Virex Dominion had unleashed their deadliest vessel yet, a massive ship bristling with weapons designed specifically to destroy humans. Its shadow loomed over the planet, darkening the skies, sending shockwaves of fear and panic across the colonies. Humanity's defenders gathered for the final stand. There was no turning back. Captain Elena Rivas stood on the bridge of the USS Vanguard, her eyes fixed on the monstrous enemy. Her hands were steady on the railing, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what this battle might cost. Every crew member, every pilot, every soldier was aware that they were facing near certain death. Yet in their eyes burned a fire that no machine could ever extinguish: determination. Humanity would fight, even if it meant giving everything they had. Lieutenant Marcus Juno prepared his fighter squadron. "Captain, this is it. If we fail here, it's over." His voice shook slightly, but his hands were steady on the controls. Elena met his gaze. "Then we succeed, Marcus. Not because we are stronger than them, but because we will never give up. Humanity does not surrender, and we will prove it now." The fleet surged forward. Lasers streaked across the void, plasma cannons blazed, and ships collided in a storm of fire and steel. Every human vessel moved with precision and courage, exploiting the weaknesses Marcus had discovered in the Virex formation. The massive enemy ship unleashed torrents of destructive energy, tearing through the human lines, but every strike was met with fierce resistance. Small squadrons of fighters darted into the fray, risking everything to disable weapon systems and shield generators. Engineers on the Vanguard worked feverishly to boost power to critical systems, reroute energy, and repair damage in real time. Civilians and medics supported wherever they could, tending to the wounded and keeping morale alive. Amid the chaos, Elena saw moments that defined humanity. A pilot, trapped under debris from a collapsed fighter, managed to free himself and take down an enemy vessel before falling unconscious. A young engineer crawled through smoke-filled corridors to manually fix a failing shield generator, saving dozens of lives. Every act of bravery, every sacrifice reinforced the truth that humanity was fighting with something no weapon could destroy: heart. Marcus led a daring assault on the massive Virex ship, weaving through energy beams and missiles with unmatched precision. "I see the core," he shouted over the comms. "We can destroy it from here." Elena issued the final orders. "All ships focus fire on the core. Every weapon, every fighter, every human, strike together. Humanity will not die today." The fleet pressed forward as one. Lasers converged, missiles struck, and fighters executed impossible maneuvers, overwhelming the Virex defenses. The massive ship shook violently as the coordinated assault tore through its systems. Explosions erupted across its hull. The shockwaves rocked the surrounding fleet, but the humans held their positions, pushing forward relentlessly. Finally, with a blinding flash that lit the darkness of space, the Virex vessel exploded. Its destruction sent debris spinning across the void, but it also sent a surge of hope through every human soul. Humanity had survived. Humanity had won. Exhausted, battered, and grieving, Captain Elena Rivas watched the remnants of the battle. The cost had been enormous: hundreds of ships destroyed, countless lives lost, but the spirit of humanity remained unbroken. Marcus approached, awe and relief on his face. "We did it, Captain. They're gone. It's over." Elena nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "It's never truly over, Marcus. But today, humanity showed the galaxy what we are. We fight not just with weapons, but with courage, heart, and the will to survive. That is a force no enemy can ever defeat." Across the galaxy, survivors began to rebuild. Humanity had faced annihilation and endured. They had fought against impossible odds and emerged victorious, not because of their technology or numbers, but because of the unbreakable human spirit. And somewhere deep in the hearts of every survivor, a quiet vow echoed. Humanity would never bow, never surrender, and never stop fighting for life, hope, and freedom. The stars were quiet again, but the silence felt heavy. The Virex Dominion had been defeated, their lethal vessels destroyed, and their threat ended, for now. Yet the galaxy bore the scars of war. Planets were damaged, colonies were in ruins, and countless human lives had been lost. Humanity had survived, but the cost had been immense. Captain Elena Rivas stood on the bridge of the USS Vanguard, staring at the distant planets that had suffered so much. She saw the flickering lights of settlements being rebuilt, ships carrying supplies and refugees, and crews tending to the wounded. The pain of loss was everywhere, but so was hope. Humanity was still alive, and that was more than anyone had expected. Lieutenant Marcus Juno joined her, exhaustion and relief written across his face. "Captain, we did it. We survived. The colonies, they're safe, for now." Elena turned to him, her eyes soft but resolute. "Yes, Marcus. We survived. Not because we were stronger, not because we had more weapons, but because we never gave up. Humanity fights with more than machines or firepower. We fight with our hearts, our courage, and our determination to protect each other." Across the fleet, survivors shared stories of heroism. A medic had saved dozens of lives by running through debris-filled corridors. Pilots who had been trapped behind enemy lines found a way back, guiding others to safety. Every story carried the same truth. Even in the darkest moments, humans had acted with bravery, compassion, and relentless determination. Elena walked through the corridors of the Vanguard, seeing the fatigue and relief etched on every face. Young soldiers hugged their friends, engineers smiled as damaged systems came back online, and civilians whispered prayers of thanks. Humanity's spirit had endured unbroken in the face of annihilation. A child who had watched the battle from a safe transport ship approached Elena. "Captain, when will they come back?" The innocence in the child's voice struck her heart. Elena knelt, meeting the child's wide eyes. "Maybe," she said honestly. "But we are humans. We survive, we rebuild, and we fight when we must. And as long as we are brave, we will always protect each other. That is what makes us strong." In the observation deck, the stars stretched endlessly, calm and silent. Elena reflected on the journey humanity had taken, from fragile colonies to a united fleet standing against an enemy determined to erase them. The memories of those who had fallen weighed heavily on her, but they also fueled her hope. Every life lost had been part of a greater purpose, to show the galaxy that humans would not bow, would not surrender, and would not vanish. The survivors began to rebuild the colonies, working together with unity and determination. Humanity had faced extinction and endured. Ships carried supplies, doctors tended the wounded, and families began to restore what had been destroyed. The war had left scars, but it had also strengthened bonds. Humans were no longer just scattered colonies. They were a force, a family, a species united by courage and heart. Elena returned to the bridge one last time before she rested. She looked at the stars, letting the weight of grief and relief wash over her. "We fought with everything we had," she whispered, voice trembling. "We lost much, but we survived. Humanity is alive, and as long as we are, no one can ever erase us." Marcus stood beside her silently. The fleet hummed softly around them, alive with life and activity, a testament to resilience. "We've proven them wrong," he said quietly. "Yes," Elena replied, They thought humans could be destroyed, but humans survive, humans endure, and humans always fight, because we cannot live any other way. As the Vanguard and the fleet moved through the galaxy, survivors of the war worked to rebuild what had been lost. The stars held both sorrow and promise, and humanity, battered but unbroken, carried hope into the future. In the hearts of every man, woman, and child who had survived, one truth burned bright. Humans were unstoppable when they fought with courage, compassion, and unyielding spirit. And in the silence of space, one final vow echoed across the fleet. Humanity would never bow, never surrender, and never forget.